necessary for preparing for the hearing, okay?
Right, Judge. And our problem is if we file, we are asking. He's absolutely denying these allegations, and we're asking him.
The Detroit Lions just found their answer at cornerback, and it might surprise you. Here is the thing nobody is talking about right now. Everyone in Lions Nation is sitting in their feelings about Terrion Arnold, and rightfully so, because the situation is genuinely shocking. But while the football world has been busy reacting to the drama, the Detroit Lions might have accidentally stumbled into a secondary that is more capable than anyone realizes. And we are about to break down exactly why, because there's a bigger story here than just one cornerback going to jail. There's a story about hidden depth, about overlooked veterans, about a Michigan kid nobody believed and who quietly put together one of the most impressive coverage grades on this entire football team, and about a free agent market that still has some genuinely useful corners sitting out there waiting for a phone call. So buckle up, Lions fans, because today we are talking about what this cornerback room actually looks like and why the panic might be premature. But let us start where we have to start. Terrion Arnold, the 23rd pick drama. The Tallahassee kid who walked into a Detroit NFL draft crowd of 400,000 screaming fans and absolutely owned that moment. Grabbed the mic, looked at the city like he belonged to it. We loved him for that. And now, roughly 2 years later, he is sitting in the middle of a situation involving 8 felony charges, 4 counts of kidnapping and 4 counts of armed robbery that carry a potential life sentence. He turned himself involuntarily down in Tampa, and his representation is maintaining that he categorically denies any involvement and that there is no credible evidence linking him to the allegations. His team says they look forward to his day in court. The Lions issued a measured statement saying they are aware of the situation and will not comment. Professional, careful, and almost certainly the last step before the axe drops. Because in the NFL, you do not get the benefit of the doubt. We have seen it with Cam Sutton. We have seen it everywhere. When a player becomes a legal situation, this league moves on, and the Lions will too. Now here is where most of the conversation stops. But this is where ours is just getting started. Because with Arnold almost certainly gone, people are immediately asking, so what do the Detroit Lions actually have left? And the honest answer is more than you think. Not a perfect room. Not a room you would build from scratch if you had your pick. But a room with options, with depth, with at least one player who quietly proved something real last season, and with a free agent market that has legitimate help available right now if Brad Holmes wants to make a call. Let's start with the player nobody is talking about nearly enough. Nick Whiteside. The man is from Auburn Hills, Michigan. He went to Avondale High School. He played college football at Saginaw Valley State, a Division II program right here in the state of Michigan. And he worked his way from an undrafted free agent to practice squad, to active roster, back to practice squad, back to active roster, in the kind of journey that would exhaust most people before it was over. And what did he do when he finally got on the field in a meaningful way? He put up an 88.3 PFF coverage grade. In limited snaps, about 41 coverage snaps concentrated against Tampa Bay, he was shockingly, impossibly sticky. To put that number in context, that coverage grade was better than Terrion Arnold's, better than Rock Ya-Sin's, better than DJ Reed's. Nick Whiteside was, according to the grades, the best cornerback on this entire football team in 2025, and barely anyone noticed. He signed a 1-year extension in January. He is back on the roster for 2026, and right now his name needs to be part of this conversation in a real way. Is a small sample size at Division II school the foundation you want to bet your season on? No, but the tape does not lie, and this kid can play. If his opportunity expands, do not be shocked when he shines. Now, beyond Whiteside, let's talk about what this room actually looks like at the top. DJ Reed is the anchor, and when that hamstring is right, DJ Reed is a legitimate number 1 cornerback. He himself admitted last year that his play looked dramatically different before and after that injury hit. Before, top-level cover corner. After, a player working through physical limitations. The reports coming out of the offseason are that his burst is fully back. And if that is true, the Lions have a reliable starter on one side of the field that they can feel good about. That alone changes the equation significantly. Rock Ya-Sin is next. 30 years old, which is why people keep saying his window is closing. But what Ya-Sin showed last season was that he is a high-floor, reliable, drama-free football player who does his job without making the people around him nervous. You know what you are getting. That is valuable. Sometimes that is more valuable than upside. Then you have Roger McCreary, who is your slot cornerback. And that designation mattered a lot, because if you try to move him outside and leave the nickel empty, you have a problem. McCreary is built for the slot. That is his game. That is where he is good. Then there is Keith Abney, the fifth-round rookie from Arizona State out of the 2026 draft, who now has more opportunity than he ever expected to have at this stage of his career. And there is Ennis Rakestraw, still only 23 years old, a former second-round pick who has been plagued by injuries his first 2 professional seasons, but has reportedly put in the work this offseason to fix that. Dan Campbell has spoken positively about what Rakestraw has shown this spring. He has added weight. He has moved better. And here's the thing about Rakestraw that makes this interesting. He is built almost identically to Terrion Arnold. 6 feet tall, around 188 pounds. Similar build, similar measurables, similar draft pedigree, second round versus first round. But where Arnold spent his 2 years in Detroit talking and struggling to stay healthy, Rakestraw has been quiet, grinding, and waiting for a shot. Now the door is wide open. Whether he can walk through it is the biggest question in this entire cornerback room. But here is where the Lions situation gets genuinely interesting, because this is a position group where the free agent market almost always has useful players sitting on it deep into the summer. Veteran corners get written off constantly, too old, injury history, past their prime, and then they go out and prove everyone wrong. That is exactly what Rock Ya-Sin did. Nobody was sure he had much left. He was 30 years old. People were skeptical. And then he went out and quietly became one of the more reliable corners on this team. That is the archetype the Lions should be hunting right now. The first name on that list, and maybe the most intriguing one, is Rasul Douglas. 9-year NFL veteran. 6'2", 209 pounds. In 2025, he played 13 starts for the Miami Dolphins and put up a 72.7 PFF grade, 21st among all qualifying cornerbacks in the entire league. 13 passes defensed, 2 interceptions, 62 tackles. Let that sink in for just a second. That grade of 72.7 would have been the single highest grade of any Detroit Lions cornerback who played regularly last season. He would have walked into this room as the best returning corner by the numbers. He is bigger than anyone Detroit currently has on the outside. The schematic fit is not perfect. He is more comfortable in zone than press man, and Dan Campbell's defense leans into physicality. But when you're 6'2" and you just graded out 21st in the league, you figure out how to fit. Douglas is still sitting and signed on the free agent market, and if Brad Holmes is paying attention, he should be picking up the phone. Then there's Tre'Davious White. Once upon a time, this man was legitimately one of the best cornerbacks in the entire NFL. 2-time All-Pro, 2-time Pro Bowler. And then the injuries arrived in waves, a torn ACL in 2021, a torn Achilles in 2023, and people started writing him off. He went to the Rams. He went to the Ravens. He went back to Buffalo. And what happened when he got back to Buffalo last season? He started all 16 games he played, put up 10 passes defensed, 1 interception, 9 pass breakups, 6 tackles for loss, and limited opposing receivers to just 5.3 yards per target over 700 defensive snaps. He is 31 years old now. He is fully a year removed from that Achilles injury, and he is sitting in free agency right now because the Bills have invested in their youth movement and may have let a perfectly solid starting corner walk out the door. White is not the all-pro version of himself anymore. The guy is gone. But the version of Tre'Davious White that played in 2025 is absolutely a starting caliber corner in this league. And for the Detroit Lions, who are looking for a proven veteran to stabilize the outside of their secondary while their younger guys develop, White might be the most natural fit of anyone on this market. And then the name that is impossible to ignore if you pay any attention to the nickel cornerback position, Kenny Moore. Former Pro Bowler, undrafted out of Valdosta State in 2017. Spent 9 seasons in Indianapolis as one of the most reliable slot corners in the NFL. Career totals of 21 interceptions, 68 passes defensed, 6 forced fumbles, over 600 combined tackles. The man can flat out play football. He was released by the Colts earlier this offseason after mutual agreement to seek a trade that never materialized. Indianapolis saved nearly $10 million against the cap by letting him go. In 2025, Moore put up 55 tackles, 6 passes defensed, a pick 6, and a PFF grade of 66.7 in 14 games, mostly as a slot defender. Now here is the part that should make every Lions fan sit up straight. Kenny Moore said publicly this week that he wants to win. He wants to go to a contender. He wants culture. He used the word culture specifically, and he said he wants to serve a team that is ready to compete. Now, you tell me, does the description contender with strong culture remind you of any organization in the NFC right now? Because it sounds exactly like Dan Campbell's Detroit Lions. Moore turning 31 this August does not scare a Lions organization that has gotten strong production out of Rockyason at 30, Chuck Clark at 33, and veteran after veteran who most teams had given up on. The Lions have a track record of maximizing experienced players, and Moore would fit that mold perfectly as a nickel corner who can start, lead, and make plays when the game is on the line. If Brad Holmes calls Kenny Moore and Kenny Moore says yes, that is arguably a better situation than anything this team had with Terrion Arnold playing. And I do not say that lightly. Arnold was a first-round pick. The expectation was always that he would emerge into a legitimate starter. But he was grading out as the 4th or 5th best corner on this team last year when healthy. Khalil Dorsey did not get enough snaps to qualify, but his numbers graded better. Nick Whiteside's limited snaps graded better. The honest reality is that Terrion Arnold, in the form we saw him last year, was not solving Detroit's cornerback problem. He was a part of the problem, and now that he is almost certainly gone, the Lions can stop waiting for a player who is not delivering and start getting clear-eyed about building this room the right way. That means leaning on DJ Reed at the top and trusting that the healthy version of him is the corner we saw before his hamstring gave out. That means letting Rockyason anchor one side of the field and do what he does. Solid, dependable, no surprises. That means making a call about Rasul Douglas or Tre'Davious White or Kenny Moore before someone else gets there first. That means giving Ennis Rakestraw a real extended opportunity to prove that the second-round investment was not wasted and that the best football of his life is still ahead of him. That means watching Nick Whiteside, a kid from Auburn Hills, a Saginaw Valley State product, a guy who had to earn everything the hard way, and seeing if those 41 snaps against Tampa Bay were a preview of something real. And that means figuring out where Keith Abney fits, where Roger McCreary fits, where Christian Izzian fits, and whether this depth is actually deeper than it looks on paper. The Lions are a Super Bowl caliber team. The offense is going to be great. Jared Goff, Jahmyr Gibbs, the offensive line, we're not worried about any of that. The question has always been whether the defense can hold its end of the bargain when the games matter most. The secondary has been the vulnerability. Terrion Arnold was supposed to be the answer, and he turned out to be the biggest question of all. But here is what Detroit Lions football has taught us over the last 3 or 4 years under Dan Campbell. When this organization loses a piece they were counting on, someone steps up. Someone nobody expected. That has been the identity of this team. The next man up mentality is not just a slogan in Allen Park. It is a culture. And somewhere in that cornerback room right now, there's a player who's about to have the summer of his life and make Lions fans forget that any of this drama ever happened. The secondary is going to be just fine. Detroit is going to be just fine. This is still a team built to compete for championships. And one legal situation involving a player who is not even the best corner on the roster is not changing that equation. The Honolulu Blue and Silver are still coming for the NFC, and we have got our eyes on every move between now and September. If you're locked in on this Lions secondary situation and you want to follow every single development from here to training camp, hit that like button right now and let us know in the comments. Which free agent do you want the Lions to target? Is it Kenny Moore? Rasul Douglas? Tre'Davious White? Or do you trust what is already in the building? Sound off below. We love hearing from you. And if you're not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? We have been doing this for years, and we are not stopping. Hit that subscribe button, ring the notification bell, and we will see you on the next one. Detroit, let's go.